Boo! Mark Attwood Show. Cosmic Suit. Adventures in thereof. How are you? It's currently near the end of May 2023. I was on Sean Attwood Show last night. I really let rip. Probably won't be able to see it anywhere on the internet. Probably on his Patreon, but it was powerful. And also look out for, I did a recording last night of me watching a documentary that I think is extremely important and powerful, and possibly the best definitely the best documentary I've ever seen on Jimmy Savile, which tells a side to the story that I think is connected to the Philip Schofield stuff that's going on right now and what's going on worldwide in this spiritual war. And the film is called Was Jimmy Savile a Wizard? And it's me talking, watching it. So I'll probably be up on Rumble. So look out for that. Make sure you're on my email list if you want to be notified of things like this, because sometimes I can't put them on YouTube. And yeah, as usual, all the links are below in the description, especially the email list. Don't forget the email list. I have a special show today because when I first met Indigo Angel, I was like, right, because she knows an enormous amount about grid work, and she contacted me about something that I probably can't explain to you. So I'm just going to sit back and introduce her again to the show. It's something to do with, we rehearsed it before, and it was something to do with healing. Oh, what was it? I've forgotten.
Well, it's all about healing this sexual misery spell that has
sexual misery spell
for 22,000 plus years on this earth. Yes. So
okay, take it away.
Come on into the show today.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here. Oh my gosh, I was jamming to your new intro.
Oh, cool. Well, it's about a year old. I just never used it on the show. I just used it on the films. But recently, I thought, yeah, I'll just use the intro.
It's really nice. It's really
because people need a minute just to get in the mood for the show.
It's a total mood. It relaxes you. It just chills out the vibration as we come on into the room, and it's great. I love it. Thank you for doing that.
Cool. So, the sexual misery spell. That's the bit that got me, because there's a lot of people that are extremely. I mean, this whole period, actually, the last 10 years, in particular, in terms of relationships and sexuality and everything else, has been more shaken up than ever before. In fact, the amount of relationship breakups during the COVID era and divorces, etc., has been higher than it's ever been. And I think, and when I was going through plant medicine with ayahuasca and peyote and stuff like this, I was meeting lots of people that were introducing me to concepts I'd not really come across before, like open marriages and swinging and all that kind of stuff, which I had a very sort of conservative idea about sexual relationships and stuff like that. And I'm seeing people really struggling with the idea of, one concept that I never understood until I got hit around the face with it about 5 years ago, was the concepts of codependency, for example.
Yeah.
And that's something that took me a while to get my head around. I didn't really understand it. And recently it's been this concept of boundaries, because I've never really had any boundaries, because I've just sort of rolled through life and just gone, oh, I'll go over here, I'll go over here, I'll go over here, without really understanding that your energy gets taken, and you might tread on people's toes without realizing or without meaning to do so. And so you've got to have these clear boundaries. That's been a very big one for me in the last couple of years. So as always with you, Indy, I was intrigued on the take on it, because you talk about implants and the amount of time this has been going on. It's reptilian, etc., etc. So I'll start waffling and let you explain it and if it's not in layman's terms, I'll just stop you and say, explain that.
Just stop me, because you know me, I kind of like to, I jump off the deep end and I just start swimming like a nymph or like a mermaid, right? And I don't realize how deep I'm going. So yeah, if that happens, just stop me and I'll try to backtrack a little bit. But yeah, you're absolutely right with that. With the two things that you just hit, with codependency and boundaries, those are, I think, one of the two most fundamental pieces in maintaining healthy relationships that we don't really learn from the beginning. A lot of us are groomed through our parental situations and through degraded mother and father arcing energies, right? So it's we have this perception through our immediate ancestral component of it, where we have our mother and our father, where this is where we idealize, believe it or not. A lot of people idealize their perceptions of the divine mother and the divine father according to their own parental grooming.
Can I ask
So
you? Can I interrupt you there?
mhm,
Use the word arcing in that sentence.
yes.
As you use that word, the word archetype came to mind, and then that came to mind, the word archon came to mind. Would that be going down the right or not?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all connected.
Hmm.
They're all one and the same. They're all extensions of each other's according to different dimensions and our reality experience, and in which we come to understand our reality in the 3D, but we're pulling it from the 4D. We're pulling it from the grid structures all over the earth. We're pulling it from the Stargate systems. We're pulling it from the spiritual components and the higher divine aspects of the heavens and the higher heavens. And so it merges into one perception ultimately, but the arcane systems are what take us from our perception of the 3D and bridge us as a creation bridge to the source energy, in which we're pulling the concepts, the realizations, the idealizations, and the energy from. And so for most people that incarnate, they incarnate it into severely degraded mother and father arcing networks, which means those systems on a divine level are already degraded. They're already generationally degraded because they're coming in with the inheritance of the wounding of their ancestors.
Well, interestingly, a couple of weeks ago, I had a massive problem with my hip, and on a physical level, it was a tendon trapped on my hip bone that was spasming, and it was agony. But even while I was in the pain and screaming, I knew I was clearing something, and then I had
Yeah.
I had some emotional release.
Which side?
The side of grief and anger,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had some emotional relief work done with somebody, and they said that it was from my grandmother, and it was passed down to my, and it was unresolved, passed to my dad, then passed to me, and it was my job to clear it. That would be connected to all of this kind of thing, right? Because
Absolutely.
that seems to be happening to a lot of people at the moment. Anecdotally, I'm getting, in social media, the comments I'm getting, there's a lot of people seem to be going through some sort of massive clearance right now.
Well, you're absolutely right. One thing that I've been seeing come up a lot is in people's fields. Just when I look into their fields, I just close my eyes and go in, and I immediately see the flames. There's a lot of flames right now. There's a lot of activation of the internal transformative processes happening right now. I've been seeing the white flames. I've been seeing the blue flames. I've been seeing the red and the orange, like really just the transformative fire, the fire that takes us and transforms that pain body. And right now that is really heightened at this time. And I think a lot of people have taken a step back at this time just to really process the pain that they feel and really go through the burning. People are burning right now. They're burning that trauma and pain body. And it's a restorative process. It's necessary. We have to get to the other side. But at the same time, people need the skills, they need the tools to learn how to toil their fertile grounds. And instead of just living on this scorched earth where there's no nutrients, there's no ability for them to quench and thirst the soul desires, right? There's no like.
Well, this is what's happened with the cabal and what they've done. They've put these things in place on, free access to porn, Tinder, dating, blah blah blah, and it's all become like McDonald's. It's just like something you do, you just grab it and off you go. And there's no, and it's like you said, there's no nutrition in a McDonald's burger, for example. It's the same kind of thing, and it's degrading. It's degrading us on multiple levels, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a part of the implant system. So I sent you some screenshots of the masculine implant system, and I've worked on this for a while. First, I came into the realization of the female implant system, and just to give you a little background of this, it ultimately came down through the original Ioni massacres that took place in Kauai, Hawaii. This was about 22,000 years ago, maybe 70,000 years ago. I don't know. There's a gray space in this, and because there's a gray space, it leads me to believe that there was multiple events that actually happened. There was multiple massacres. There was multiple holocausts. There was multiple levels of betrayal that took place between men and women, between distortions and parasitic energy, that and invader energy that came in and separated men and women, okay, from our true divine union, from our true hieros gamos, from our true holy, where we're merged up through the 7 through 12. We're one soul, right? The true twin Maharic flames. And so this betrayal and this degradation took place, and I can explain what that was, the events that actually took place, the actual things that happened between men and women that divided us so deeply. But there was this great wounding that took place for those of us that are of this greater ascended soul collective, those of us that have came into our indigo bodies or our starseed bodies, or those of us that have came into the realization that we're going through the ascension processes, and we are of ascended soul lines, and we remember our Akashic history. And so this took place in Lemuria. People wonder where the great divide of the sexes took place. Well, I don't think it was in the Polarian root race. I don't think it was in the Hyperborean. I think this tragedy took place in the Lemurian timeline. And it was a great betrayal and a deception that has bled down through our genetics inheritance, through this great degradation or dematerialization of true union. And so many things come in with this. Porn implants, that's an implant. I mean, it's a collective implant that we're all dealing with, but it's of the mind and the brain and the reproductive organ complex. And so it is, it's very intense, and it's definitely something that is plaguing humankind in terms of distraction, because they want to distract you from focus. They want to distract you from the things that really matter in this life.
Well, you said a few things there that brought a few things up for me. So the Lemurian timeline and Hawaii, you're linking those together, as in Hawaii's part of Lemuria.
Yes.
And how does that connect with New Zealand and the Maoris?
Well, they're definitely all connected. Well, the Lemurian grid, taking it down to an energetic form. So in an energetic form, everything in this world is built off of light matrices. So that's the true, universal template. It's the core template where everything is built together off these light structures that kind of build the pre-matter template for the matter bodies to come forward, for the volcanoes to erupt, and for land masses to emerge, right? This is coming through light, ultimately. It actually is. And so that's kind of, Lemuria holds the original D13 organic template, which is our true spiritual essence to the earth body, right?
Okay, just pause there for a second.
Okay.
I get that. That makes sense. I think everybody watching this gets that. There was something else you said that made me want to just check. So you said 22,000 years, might be 7,000 years. Don't exactly know. There's this gray area, but it's happened again and again and again.
Yeah.
What came to mind for me then was that it sounds like that was maybe the original point of degradation. And then there's been this great reset every so many years. Some people think it's 130, 400 years, whatever. Great reset, great reset, great reset, because they had to degrade us and hide our power so that they could use us as a creative force to feed off us. And then as we started, the light started to realize that, oh, hang on, this 97% junk DNA is not junk. It's connected to our whole history, our Akashic records, all our superpowers, etc. And as that started to unlock, that's why they do the reset, start again, and they genetically modify us. Now, the term genetically modified, for me, totally ties in with what you're talking about by corrupting with the implants and the light source and changing the light. And that matches up with the Lemurian stuff that I know, which isn't a lot, but the distorted light and the undistorted light. Okay, so Ma is the undistorted light of creation, which is the blueprint, as far as I can understand, which matches up with what you're talking about with the template. And then that template's become degraded and had the implants put in, which matches up with what you're talking about, which matches up with the Lemurian concepts of the distorted light, which is where we currently are in the distorted light, moving back to the original blueprint and the undistorted light of creation. So I'm just seeing if that ties up.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. I'm learning something.
Well, you just like, you kind of like re-summed it up and brought it back into wholeness. But yeah, that's exactly what is happening.
Okay.
There is it's happening as we recover these parts of ourselves, you know, as we recover and remove the implants, remove what was, you know, placed inside of us from this time. And it's happening through each one of us, one by one, as each of us realize that this has happened, and where we can consciously and subconsciously realize where it's inside of us and begin to take the implants out and restore our organic wholeness. And we can walk upon the missions of the 144 and reactivate the new earth body, which is ultimately connected to Lemuria. You know, I've been saying for a long time that in order for us to restore the sexual misery spell that has come upon men and women, we have to re-embrace the healing potentials and powers of what we once used as Lemurian priestesses, as Lemurian priest. Okay, because this wisdom was given to the Atlantean priesthood. They took this wisdom from the Lemurian time and from those that were, you know, of these original tribal cultures of that time. And so we have to it's called an archaic revival. I think there's a guy that talked about it. Dennis McKenna. Is it Dennis McKenna? What's his name?
Terrence.
Terrence McKenna.
Terrence.
I think this is like his
guy,
or something.
the guy who said that magic mushrooms were aliens.
Exactly. But he wrote a book about an archaic revival, and it's where we go back into the past and we restore that healing properties and the potentials of what we once used, because it is most connected to our original organic tribal codes. And as our DNA becomes more activated, we become more 12-strand activated. This is what we seek to restore within us. And so it's so important that we rediscover the healing potential of Lemuria, because there are technologies we used in that time that we don't use now. A lot of it has to do with sound healing, but a lot of it also has to do with temple technology. And this is why we have all of these sacred sites all over the earth, Machu Picchu. I mean, where we have these beautiful temples, temples of the moon, temples of the sun, temples of the earth. And we can work with those temples. And because we did prayer, we did sacred ceremony in these temples, we healed our wombs, we healed our breast, we healed our, you know, reproductive organs, our genitalia, believe it or not. We did that in these temples. Our sexual misery was something that we acknowledged in that time. And it's something that we are just taught to repress now. And so it's so deep, right? Like this is it's so nurturing though to the heart core, because we were just talking coming before we came in this room. The main grievance between people, between men and women, between the collective, is our relationships. It's the hardest part of everything that we are. It's the hardest thing we do in this life. It's the hardest thing we have to learn how to understand and navigate. And it's not easy, and there's a lot of suffering through it, right? Like,
well, the suffering comes from placing a blueprint upon somebody. I wrote a play 30 years ago that kind of talked about this. It was all stream of consciousness, but it was like you ignore the parts that you don't like, and then what happens is after a period of time, those parts start to annoy you, and then you create, and then jealousy and bitterness and all these horrible emotions creep in, and then it's just a matter of time before it crumbles. And the ones that get past that are the ones that are just really good at ignoring those things and just accepting their lot. And you know, and I think that's why the last 3 years in particular have seen so many relationships breakdowns, because it's had to get to fundamentals with people when they look inside themselves during lockdowns and stuff and say, you know, that's why I called it spiritual quarantine. It wasn't just a lockdown. It was like, okay, look inside yourself. Who are you? Where are you going? What do you want? And then a lot of people came up with answers that were completely different because they've been too busy to think about them. Because as you said, like the porn implant, it's all about distraction. Everything's a distraction from focusing on who you really are, right?
But that one definitely came down from the elite. It came down from the cabal. It's come down from the parasitic invasion of the old dark ones that have impeded upon the reptilian brain cortex to essentially attack the light of humanity. And so Yeah, I think a lot of people forget about the self, and that this journey in general is about coming back to the self and becoming that Hieros Gamos union within themselves, right? That full Trinity flame within their own divine heart complex, and that they can channel that and be whole within. And we forget that it's not an external process of seeking acknowledgement or affirmation or whatever in another, even though it ultimately is about that at the same time. It's so complex that we have to learn how to navigate these fields and yet hold our own internal light. And so it's one of the reasons why I've been so dedicated to designing these implant templating for both females and males. So I started with the female templating and then moved on to the male, because female is what I understood. It was what I knew firsthand is, really coming from the truth of the core world wounding, which where it began, which was with the forced breeder programs. It was with that original betrayal of a Luciferian rebellion that took place. And it actually has to do with Toth, and it has to do with the Ioni tribes, which were the original ascended masters of the Lemurian time. And these ascended masters had the healing abilities because they were in union with their true Maharic twins, and they could utilize the intimate and sexual energies of their twin, and they could use these sound healing qualities that could go into the Amareya passageways and clear the distortions in the mother and father arcing lines, also in the J seals that were impeded upon the planetary distortions in terms of crucifixion and persecution wounding and enslavement wounding. And they also could clear the universal tree of life of the earth through bringing sound healing through the ground and taking it to the inner earth gate systems through Kauai, Hawaii, probably through New Zealand, probably Madagascar, Australia, Kunam Kumari, the tip of India. These are all areas where the Lemurian grid structures were located. And so through that Luciferian rebellion, they got word that these Maharic twins could do this, and they came in to attack and pin the men and women against each other and take the women for forced breeding programs and then slaughter the men, slaughter them and castrate them. And this is where ultimately the descendants of this idealization of circumcision came from. Okay, that impeded upon the Elohim lines that then took it into Israel, which where it was indoctrinated under the Abrahamic religions as something that was a norm, a normal thing. But it's truly a satanic ritual abuse that has been done to males.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is, we're talking about severe, and people don't even realize this because it's buried under the subconscious. It's buried under rounds and rounds of that great reset, right? Where we forget we're suffering from amnesia. So we don't even think about it, but those of us that are really waking up to our true and our core power and being like, my gosh, like, circumcision is such a,
it's barbaric, man.
It is an immediate attack upon the soul body of our masculines immediately from birth.
Yeah.
And this is thing we don't and for women, we focus so much on our own stuff because we have so much going on with our hormones and our cycles, and my gosh, but we forget to look at what's going on with the men, and we blame them for so much. We're so angry, we're so resentful, we wonder why they're not up to par with our spirituality, all of this stuff. But I mean, they're the first line of attack. Our alpha masculines, their templating was the first line of attack for the negative ones. They don't want the men to rise up. They don't want them to have healthy nuclear families. They don't want them. This is where it's come down. And so, yeah,
and we're seeing that play out now in 3D. The attacker. I mean, the memes I saw a meme this morning, 1992, guy in a leather jacket hugging a woman in a bikini on a motorbike, looked great. And now it's two men with man bags on electric scooters. Something went wrong. They're demasculating us.
Absolutely. And one of the things I've been seeing in terms of the male implants is estrogen implants. So it's an actual artificial estrogen energy because it's coming through the food, it's coming through the environment, it's coming through
till receipts. I get asked every time I go to, would you like a receipt? No, thank you. And then people, my kids are like, why don't you want to receive? Because it's covered in estrogen.
There you go.
It's everywhere.
It comes into the body, and especially in men, like it plagues the breast area because, you know, it actually produces like the hormone to create. Oh my gosh.
What?
Okay, sorry, there was a bee or a bug or something going around my head.
I thought you were looking at my boobs.
I was looking at your boobs. No, often I get little visitors that just buzz by, but sometimes some of them freak me out.
Yeah, you good.
But the estrogen is in the testicles. It's in the sacral chakra area. It's in the mind, and this is what dematerializes the, you know, the testosterone, and it's literally impeding off of the flower of life structures within our masculines. Like, it is a parasitic metatronic implant. It's connected to the metatronic implant. It's a 12D suppression or oppression of the alpha masculine spirit body. And so, yeah, but this is one that's really hard because it's not really, I mean, it is generational, but it's also environmental, and it's very societal as well. So it's very hard for men to kind of negate this, you know, penetration of this estrogen implant. But it's something that's in a structure that literally goes over it's in the DNA.
Okay,
And
so we've kind of agreed that there seems to be a lot of people seem to be working through stuff as part of this ascension process right now. But what practically could somebody watching this do to reverse this or speed up the process?
Definitely. Well, it's all about acknowledgement. It's all about awareness, right? I personally have, you know, taken things into my own hands. Like, how can I help with this, right? So I've designed 2 different sessions. I call it a Lemurian regression session. And it's where I take women back through a regression process into Lemuria. I do a sacral evaluation. I do, and it's mental, it's psychological, emotional, spiritual. Where are you implanted? Where does this trauma actually reside in terms of your relationships, in terms of your motherhood, your womanhood, your priestesshood? Where are these things, you know, anchored inside of you? And then take them through the actual healing technology that was done in the Lemurian time to extract or remove it. And okay, the extraction process, whatever, it's just breath work. We're just pushing it out of the body. But what's most important is the acknowledgement that we're going to those deeper levels and those places to really acknowledge where that wounding came in. Also, on a level of past life and the Akashic, and all the way back to the Lemurian time. Were you a part of those original Ioni tribes that experienced that great betrayal? A lot of people are. So,
I had some work done on this over the last couple of years, which was sort of multi-dimensional, and I was oh, you've got an implant here in this density, and then it got hidden in this timeline on this in this place. We're going to just go and bring it back or get rid of it and stuff like that. And it's just like this endless process, it seems to me, because I'm still a work in progress.
It's absolutely endless. It's endless, and that's one thing people should understand is this work is not something that you can just, it's not one time and done. It's a maintenance. We have to maintenance our spirit and our light body because the wounds are ulcerative. They're ulcerative, which means they actually never truly actually heal. They're kind of like, they feel better, but they can reactivate, and they can come back in, and they can, you know, bring up that trauma. And so it's about being flexible, and it's about being in flow and understanding that we are a work in progress, and we have to just continually maintenance these things and come back to them time and time again.
Can't we just go back in time and kill these fuckers before they did this revolt?
I mean, I feel like if the collective could come in unification and dream that reality awake, we could. It's all about the power of our soul and mind, right? Like,
yeah.
But we have to be unified. We're so disempowered right now.
Yeah, well, I think I could manifest a time machine and take back some big lads and get rid of these Luciferian. Anyway, should we look at some of these diagrams that you?
I feel like if you could, I would join you. Yeah.
yeah. Should we look at the man or the woman?
Let's look at the man. Here
we go. Hopefully you guys can see this. I'm gonna have to enlarge it up for me a bit.
Okay. So yeah, this is my diagram, and honestly, I've been changing it since then. It's kind of a work in progress, but the main seal for the men that I think is most important to acknowledge is the dawn of time emotional seal. So this is a elite Illuminati mind control concealing of the emotional body, and this one is generationally. It's through the semen, it's through the testicles, it's through the soul monadic universal tree of life and the blood. It's DNA covenant binding, and also ancestral. And so this one is a black magic seal over the collective for the men. It really ties them up to the obelisk network. We've talked about the obelisk and the phalanx that sticks out of the ground and kind of impedes that uh, uh, vesica Pisces, which represents on a geometrical level the female anatomy, the vagina, you know. So essentially, it's a way for them to sexualize the grids and also establish that patriarchal dominance, which they're also establishing over the masculine body. Masculines don't realize that they are subservient or victimized to that black magic. And
Very,
so this
very
seal,
interesting. Look at this.
yeah.
This is a photo I took 2 days ago.
Okay, which obelisk is that?
It's not. It's a round tower in Ireland.
Okay, wow.
But
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
yeah.
Towers are, I think, I don't know if towers are a good thing or a bad thing these days. I'll tell you what.
Well,
I,
that was just an aside because of that obelisk picture. It just reminded me of this photo. We could talk about that in more depth another time, I guess. But yeah, this is fascinating.
yeah, well, this emotional seal, it's in the heart of men. It's also in the ears because how it's working is it's blocking men from hearing the emotional tonal resonance coming into the body. So they reject it. They reject it. And so it blocks the perception of the first eye, which is where we truly see. Okay. Everyone thinks it's the third eye. This blows my mind, but it's actually the heart. Our first eye is the heart. This in feeling. Feeling is your first psychic perception, and it is visual. People cannot translate those two, but once you merge those together, then you can translate it visually. But essentially, it's blocking the hearing and the emotional tones in the ears. And this is a huge seal that causes a lot of chastisement upon men, which means deep internal emotional heart suffering. We talk about the number one cause of men in the United States, all over the world. It's heart disease.
Yeah.
It's because their heart is bleeding all their lives, and they cannot. It's a disease. They because they're false to themselves, their true feelings, their needs, their wants, their desires.
Yeah.
Okay, and all that's blocked, and it's this. So this is something that has to be removed. We have to remove these blockages from our divine masculine, so they can feel, so that they can know that feeling is a part of them, and it's normal, and should be embraced, and this is spiritual, and this is who they truly are. And so yeah, this is a big one. And this one hides in a lot of different ways in people's fields, because there's a lot of denial around it. There's a lot of not wanting to be able to truly see it because of their parental grooming, what their father gave to them.
Well, I wrote a poem 30 years ago called "Medieval Barriers Are Impenetrable to Lesser Mortals," and it was like I was picturing my heart surrounded by the walls of a castle, really a fortress around my heart. And my question to you would be, I have endless love for my children, but in relationships, it's all closed off, and I don't. How does those two sit next to each other?
It's difficult, right? Because another implant that men sometimes carry is, I call it the gaze of Medusa implant, right? So that way they carry this. I almost feel like it's some holographic target where they essentially are attracted to women of deeper wounding as well. So they're calling in these Medusa archetypes. They're calling in these women that want to, stone the man, essentially, basically, and project that. So there might be some of that going on as well, where you're carrying this Medusa archetypal implant, where you're calling in wounded females. So when we remove that wounding, we can call in healthier divine unions.
Well, in my 20s, I called that white knight syndrome.
Okay.
So I was coming in on a on a big horse, saving the damsel. That's the way I saw it, but it was always me. It was always destructive.
Right, right. And there could be many different levels to this. And this is why I love talking to guys about this, is because as I learn more about this implant system, I find deeper levels of it and deeper perceptions of it and deeper areas where, you know, there is a heroic archetype for the masculine that wants to save, right? They want to save females and they want to save, you know, the damsel in distress. And so,
Well, I want to save everybody.
yeah.
But if I get too close to people, it you know, it becomes, then they want to control, and then I go no, and then it's like, whoa, back off. So my form of expression is on a macro scale at the moment. Is that a B?
Yes. There was a B. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is where that self-work is so important, right? Where we can begin to acknowledge and remove the distortions or the distorted lens in which we're seeing through, right? Because even that white knight lens is a distortion of somewhere that, you know, you haven't been fulfilled within the self, or you haven't connected to source, or you haven't healed something within the self. And then truly also diagnosing or seeing or reflecting on what are the healthy alpha masculine principles. It doesn't have to be alpha, but necessarily like what are the true qualities of the divine masculine? What are they here to do? What are they here to serve? And here on a collective level, this is a mass collective lens of distortion that we're all filtering through. And so we have to restore ourselves back to the original divine templating of what these things truly mean. And I think there's a lot of trust that's been lost on both sides, masculine and feminine, to understand. Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. I'll just explain to the viewers, I'm not trying to make this into a personal session. I'm just trying to give some, you know, some real world feelings back on what Indy's sharing here, if that makes sense.
And it goes personal, because we're human at the same time. Like, yeah, we might have these platforms and we might be spiritual healers and we might be, you know, sharing our higher gnosis all the time, but at the end of the day, we're still dealing with that humanness. We're still dealing with our sacral energy, our root chakra energy. And you know, this is really fragmented in these areas. So the more personal experiences that we can share, I think more people can tune in and resonate with us about these things. I think people really understand and can see this. Like, we're all really dealing with this.
Well, that's why I called this Adventures in a Cosmic Suit and said stuff like I'm just a bloke in a kitchen, because what I realized is that I was going through all these spiritual processes, all these life experiences, but at the end of the day, I just felt ignorant. I felt really, really ignorant, and there was nobody in my family, nobody in my, you know, the guys that I ended up getting, I don't know, inspired by were alpha males, but they had behavioral patterns that I look back on now and I'm like, oh my god, did I pick those up? Is that why did I do that? Because I didn't have anywhere else to go in terms of like understanding the true nature of why we are the way we are. And this resonates with me a lot.
Yeah. Well, they're all carrying the implants themselves, right?
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
One of the main ones for men is the King of Tyranny implant, the false King of Tyranny implant. And it's a dictatorship implant. It's about absolute power. It's about the root chakra. This plugs into the prostate gland. It plugs into the controller and the predatorial archetype mental body. And really, it just takes men down a trail of destruction. It takes them down almost like reliving the cataclysms of Atlantis. And it's over the war of enslavement over mankind. And it's about status. It's about power. It's about fame. And it's about getting lots of females and dominating females. And this comes through the Orion Stargate. This is an Orion. This is at the core of the Orion War. I mean, truly. I actually see it as a crown. I see it as a fleur-de-lis crown on the head, and it ties down to their prostate. And it is it's so when you come across men that are very self-serving in their relationships and their sexuality, they're not willing to give things like this. It's kind of an indicator that they're carrying this false king of tyranny implant. And it's the main implant that was installed to track back to forced breeder programs. So men are carrying the fleur-de-lis implant at the crown. Women are carrying it in their wombs. So men and women both have to remove this. It is in both. It is in both.
Well, there's some of that I recognize, but when this hip problem happened, my friend Honey said that it was I was in the Orion Wars and my leg got trapped in a ship and got chopped off and I died, and I was going through that process, which is interesting. I get told a lot of things on this channel, and I do take them with a pinch of salt, but nothing's beyond the realms of possibility. And I do think that we are going to remember or connect to our Akashic records and know all of this stuff for a fact soon. But I'm very interested in how we can get there in a healthier way and start rebuilding these relationships and rebuilding ourselves so that we're happier. Because the title of this video is sexual misery or something like that. I can't remember what we decided to call it, but how to get rid of that and and get rid of it, because it's a spell. I mean, you call it a spell as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a spell. It's a sexual misery spell. It's a sexual misery implant. It's dividing men and women. It's keeping us from bridging back together and coming back into union and harmony where we can live peacefully with one another. And it's impeding upon us to be able to collapse down the lenses of distortion in which we see through. I mean, do you know how many women I see like regularly that just withhold themselves from relationships for years and years and years and years, like 10 years? I mean, they just, it's like their inner soul and spirit body is a desert, but yet their soul is longing for connection and union. They're just, and it's the same, but these distortions are playing out in all of us in different ways in which we're moving across the checkerboard mutations, that scatter radiation grid, that polarization grid. And we're polarized in our mental prisons, the prisons of our mind in which we create to protect ourselves. So a lot of these implants and tags, we actually install ourselves because we're trying to withhold experiences. We're trying to withhold union. We're trying to withhold, things coming in because we are just on the defense because of all the trauma and the pain that we've experienced. And so we don't want to go into the pain body. But the only way out is in and through. We have to go in it. We have to go through it. We have to burn through the fire. And I think that's why all of these flames are coming up this month, why there's so much transformative energy, why the sacral chakra is on fire. It's through the magnetism. It's through the metallic elements of our body in which we can transmute the sacral suffering. And so it's just important. It's so imperative that we do this deeper healing work. And I never thought I would get to this place. I never thought I'd be sitting here talking about the sexual stuff that's going on, the intimate relationship parts of ourselves that's going on. But this is where my spiritual work keeps taking me. It keeps taking me into the lower density fields. And because this is what has to come up. This is what we have to move to get to that new earth.
Should we go back to the diagram?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think we covered it all.
Am I so passionate here? I feel
no, great. No,
it's passionate, Mark.
No, I know. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's resonating.
Another thing I think for men that comes up, and we forget about this as women, that men too also suffer from rape and molestation.
Yes, okay. I was talking about that last night on a show with Sean Attwood. My father was, and I was molested, and a lot of guys that I know were.
Yeah, and men are just expected to not talk about these things, not be able to heal these things, but they equally carry it just as women, and it comes through, and this is what distorts their self-sexual ideology. Why we have so many gays or transgenders and things like this is because their sexuality gets distorted from young ages, because there's a lot of men predatorily abusing other men. Also women can predatorily also abuse men as well. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
hear a lot of stories about my babysitter or this older woman came in and did this. It's like I hear these things, equally happen, that they're taken advantage of by family members. They have incest tags, incest implant tags in their field that call this in. It's inherited.
Well, I was just listening to an interview with a woman that's been involved at a very deep level with paedophilia as somebody that's worked with victims and perpetrators, and she was saying on this interview for 30 years, and she was like chief witness at the big paedophile trial in Belgium about 15 years ago, and she was saying that women, the abuse that women do to kids is incredible, and you never hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying although men seem to be the ones that are far more violent, the women are far more organized and sophisticated with it. And she was telling these stories, and I'm not surprised by this because I've known about this for a while. But I do remember the time when I couldn't. I was like, "What? Women doing sexual abuse? That doesn't make any sense." But all roads led me to Hillary Clinton, and then since then I've understood. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's true. This is really happening, and a lot of men are victimized by this, and they're also, because they're holding that emotional seal, they can't work through those emotional processes, and again, it just creates those deeper levels of distortional lenses in which they see their sexuality. And a gal told me yesterday, it has a lot to do with the Revelations, like the Book of Revelations and the four horses. That the red horse represents the perversion of sexuality, and that this may even be one of the ways of Mother Earth's way of recorrecting the distortions by blasting sexual distortions through us, and help to recorrect the natural balance and order of the sexual plane on Earth. So it's, everything merges back into source ultimately at the end of the day, right? But yet we have to filter through each one of these processes as we're going through them. It's so intense.
Well, I think it's worth pointing out here that forgiveness of self is key, and moving through this process and forgiving everybody else. And in order for us to understand the nature of one consciousness and where we go one, we go all, and ascending, we've that's why these implants and these patterns are so powerful at being destructive to the human race, because apart from distracting us from our true nature and our spirituality, the other thing that it does is these implants fill people full of grief, guilt, shame, and other things that hold them in a low frequency, which is obviously what they want to feed off us. So would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think, though, at the end of the day, it goes back to the original core world wounding. Like, we have to regress enough in our energy field to go back to the original place in which these things were implanted in us generationally, ancestrally. I mean, we can cultivate our healing, and we need the healing technology from that time to restore it. And to integrate the connection with source, to recorrect our mother and father arcing systems, right? Our ideologies of the divine mother and the divine father. A lot of people that have gone through these rape tags and these rape implants, right, where they're like manifesting and calling these experiences in, some of the severe cases of it, they need deep, deep healing with the divine father. For women, men, they need deep, deep healing with the divine mother. That's the only way to restore that. It truly is. It truly is, because you have to shed the layers of the distortions of the energy fields of the perpetrator or the abuser in your mind. You have to dissolve the living energy of them within your field, and you have to reconnect it into a perception of the divine mother or divine father that is whole, and that is the true essence, the spirit body of that, the protector energy, the divine compassion, that energy has to be replaced essentially in someone's energy field.
Okay,
And
so let's say somebody's watching this who's a man and they can't afford for sessions with someone like you. What practically could somebody do right now to help themselves?
it is to find, okay, let's say you're a man, you've been abused by a woman. Okay, so you have a lot of distortions. You just, again, you're calling in the wounded feminine, all these things. The key is to connect with a spirit, a guide, the divine mother itself, Pachamama, whatever it is, ayahuasca. Maybe it's a teacher in your actual physical reality, somebody that you've connected with that just represents the essence of a pure mother energy. You have to replace that in your field. Okay, because what's happening is through your suffering and your trauma, you're drawing the negative as a source into you. So as you're trying to heal, your idealization of what the divine mother is or the female principle is, it's a wounded, distorted template. So you're drawing your energy from that constantly. That's what you're drawing from. You have to redirect the energy of where you're drawing source light into you from. Replace it. It's about replacement. And that itself can shift entirely as you start to draw from a place of wholeness, as you start to draw from a place that represents safety, belonging, foundation, security, purity. Okay. So
As you said that, I was envisaging a beautiful oasis with a waterfall and the rocks and nice grass, and it was all warm, and I felt really cozy for a second, and I was like, oh, no, I can't go there.
yeah, you should go there. That's where you need to go.
I should go there. I should go there. And we've talked about the men a lot in this episode, and I think, and as you said, you think it's important that women understand men better, but obviously men need to understand women better in this respect. And I'm just going to quickly show this because this is what you started with, and I haven't got time to go through this now because I'm running a workshop and I've got to feed my kids all in the next 50 minutes. But can we come back and do the female one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should. There's so much with this one as well. And it's really about impeding upon the creation gates of the uterus and blocking that through the fleur-de-lis implants. This really came in through the Dark Ages. A lot of this really came in through the Roman times, the Vestal Virgins, Medusa, Athena, the cults of purity, the cults of female on female violence. There's a lot of things that happened that really aggravated this implant, but it comes, I seen this when I went to Rome. The cardinals had fleur-de-lis implants where they kept these Vestal Virgins, and these were forced breeding camps, essentially. This came down through many different lines, Irish lines, West African lines, etc. But yeah, we can definitely go into it when you have more time. But there's so much with this as well, equally very important. And like you said, it's important for men and women to know both sides of what we're dealing with.
When you mentioned the fleur-de-lis, the first thing I thought of was King Charles, Prince Charles. Did you know that the fleur-de-lis was his emblem?
For his coronation?
No, as Prince Charles. This was his emblem.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I felt the whole time that this was a reactivation of the false king of tyranny implant. This is exactly what we got a rerunning of this into the grids, into the ley lines to reactivate our sexual wounding.
And do you know what's even funnier? When I was a pilot in the RAF, we used to do an aerobatic maneuver called the fleur-de-lis, where you'd fly down, you go up, you go to the left, go to the right, and then you go over the top like this. We actually got taught to do the fleur-de-lis in the air.
Think about the fleur-de-lis. You have the fleur-de-lis. This is like the womb, the ovaries.
Yeah.
You see? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, brilliant as always, Indigo Angel, etc. You got about 50 names.
I respond to all of them.
I know, it's fantastic. I think this is really important stuff. So let's do the female one soon.
Okay, that sounds great.
You guys watching, I'll put Indy's links below the video. So if you want to get in touch, you can do that and subscribe to her YouTube channel. She's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, and thanks for showing us your gorgeous pool and mermaid there in the background, which I happen to know is a mermaid, even though it's too far away.
This is the mermaid over here. Her name is Mystique Celestia. which she is a nymph, a saltwater goddess. So yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks, Indy. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Mark. Take care. Thank you,
Get rid of
everyone.
those implants.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.